And more at cbc.ca/podcasting.
Tweeting and using Facebook. Just a couple of ways organizers of the Sask 3.0 Summit in Regina say we can help keep the province's economy rolling along. The two-day summit wraps up today and is all about encouraging business and government use social and digital technology to stay ahead. Speakers from around the world are sharing advice on how the strategy has worked in their own jurisdictions. I'm joined now by Australian economist Nicholas Gruen to hear how it's worked in Australia. Good morning.
Hi, Sheila. G'day.
So do you have a sense of where we're at here when it comes to this kind of thing right now?
Look, I'm not sure, but I mean, the fact that you're putting on this conference shows a certain kind of entrepreneurial flair. As I understand it, Grant Bastedo, the guy who has put this on, was working with government and trying to encourage government to put on something like this, and he had quite a lot of people working for him, but it was all too hard, and now he's doing it with a whole lot fewer people from the outside of government. It's quite intriguing to me. I was on a committee into innovation in Australia in 2008, and one of the things we recommended as a low-cost way for Australia to turn itself into to sort of bootstrap itself and get going on this stuff was to host an annual conference, which was an international conference, and the idea was to sort of scare ourselves into actually getting going. And I think that that's the kind of thing that's happened here in Saskatchewan, so all the signs are good.
So why was that important in Australia?
Well, you see, the internet is a very – I mean, we think of it as a technological thing, but it's a very social thing. And when we think about the economy, we think of, building more mines and attracting factories and
right.
things
It's
like
not for
that.
saying I'm having a party Friday night.
But it is like, but more and more the economy is like having a party, and this is an example of it. And I call this government as impresario. You can get things done just by, if you like, I mean, it sounds a little frivolous, but just by having a party, just by saying, here's the place to come if you want to learn from the very best people how to do stuff. We're going to ship in a whole bunch of people. So let me give you another example, which is from Australia. I only learned about this about a month ago. Have you heard of Walking with Dinosaurs? Mm-hmm. Yeah. That comes from Melbourne.
Here.
Yeah. Well, I didn't know that this was produced out of Melbourne. You can go
I didn't know that.
You can go to a stadium and you can believe that you're watching Tyrannosaurus Rex wandering around. It's completely incredible. Now that sort of arose from Melbourne's theatre community. We have all the skills of puppetry and animatronics and all kinds of stuff. And when they were thinking about putting this on, they did their sums and they said, you know what, if we do this and we absolutely sell out in Australia, we'll make losses. This has to be a global phenomenon and it'll be hugely profitable or we'll lose money. And that was their focus. And in a sense, that's the way in which you have to think. Now, it's not going to be dinosaurs walking around in stadiums. We did that. Mm-hmm. But it's if you were sitting around saying, how do we employ 50 people in Melbourne full-time doing something they love and entertaining the world or getting the attention of the world, you probably wouldn't have thought of dinosaur puppets. So you're not necessarily going to be able to think about in advance what those things are.
But is the idea using technology then and social media to market that, to make it a success worldwide?
Yes, it is. That's the idea. But it's also the idea that that's kind of where the idea came from. The idea is a social idea. It actually came out of somebody's Christmas party. A guy said, a team of workers said to their boss, who was famous for putting on really fantastic Christmas parties, we want to build a dinosaur. It's going to cost you a bit of money. He said, go ahead with it. And this grew from there. Now, that's a very social kind of thing. It isn't someone sitting around saying, how do I start a new business? He didn't say, what I'm going to do this year is I'm going to have a Christmas party and that's going to start a dinosaur business.
Yeah.
It just sort of came out.
So you're saying you have to change the way you view economic growth.
Well, yes, and there's all that other economic growth that's going on as well. But if you want to do something really incredible, it's not necessarily going to come out of some committee that's thinking about competitiveness. That's the thing. It's going to come out of somewhere, somebody saying, let's do this because I really want to do it. And that's one of the things that Grant did with this conference.
Right. But beyond conferences, and holding conferences annually, what else does a province experiencing a boom, as Saskatchewan is right now, have to do?
Well, I can't tell you that, but to just take the example of the conference has got people here, got people noticing here, and it's got the people here thinking about all these new sorts of things. So that can lead to people in Saskatchewan thinking, noticing these things. I mean, I came into this studio and you asked me to tweet that we were about to do it, and you retweeted my tweet. Mm-hmm. Now, that hasn't happened to me in the ABC back in Australia, and so you may not be thinking of that as competitiveness. You're thinking of that as kind of just letting people know. But it's part of the building blocks of doing things better. And if enough people are doing that, then it has its own effect. I know it sounds like a kind of vague thing that I'm saying.
So make it more specific. You gave me the dinosaur example, but give me another example of maybe from your own experience of changing how you do things in order to foster economic growth.
Well, it wasn't. Well, okay. An example is a company that I was the chairman of. Again, born in Melbourne, now operating out of Silicon Valley. It's called Kaggle. Kaggle crowdsources data analytics. What the hell is that, I hear you cry. So what it does is, let's say you're a bank and you want to build a credit scoring model. That's a big piece of a big computer program that you put everybody's somebody says, come on, I want a loan, and you say, how old are you, and how many jobs have you had, and when have you been unemployed, and all that sort of stuff, and it predicts how likely you are to default. Okay? So what we did is we put all the data, anonymised of course, up on the website, and we said we're going to hide some of this data, and the person who's the best in the world at predicting what this data that we've hidden is the person who's built the best credit scoring model in the world.
Competition.
Exactly. Yeah. And of course, who wins this competition? A guy from Baltimore. So you're getting people in Baltimore working for us in Melbourne.
Right.
So that's another thing. You're short of labour here, or likely to be short of labour if you keep.
Well, we talked last hour. We talked to an Irishman who's making his way here.
Yeah, exactly. So, but they don't have to come here anymore. So this is a real upside down world, and people who can get into the swing of it can just do extraordinary things.
Well, thank you so much for coming in, and thank you for being this morning. I've had 2 of my 3 favorite accents in the world. We had the Irishman, the Australian. If I had a Frenchman or a Frenchwoman now, the triumvirate would be there for me. But thanks so much for coming in.
Thanks very much.
Australian economist Nicholas Gruen, and he'll be speaking at the Sask 3.0 Summit a little bit later today in Regina.
Looking for more